All right, good Thursday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Eastlick with meteorologist Stone Schaefer wanted to give you a quick update before our 10 o'clock newscast tonight. Probably not going to stay on for a super long time because storms are still moving from the west side of the state into the state of Michigan right now. We'll take the latest look at the radar. It looks like they're actually just starting to approach the west side of the state near the lakeshore, and they have been pretty active as we've gone throughout the last couple of hours in parts of Wisconsin and also into parts of Minnesota. Looks like they're maintaining some strength as they move out over Lake Michigan. And while you're not necessarily seeing it on the radar right now, there are some alerts that are out over the lakeshore for these storms. So they will likely have some severe thunderstorm warnings, at least for parts of this line, as it gets ready to move back into the state of Michigan here over the next couple of minutes. It looks like it's not too far from the lakeshore right now, just to the west of Grand Rapids, and the whole line itself looks pretty put together, Stone.
Yeah.
It's held its structure pretty nicely over the lake, and one of the things that I noticed on Facebook a little bit earlier tonight and some of our other forms of social media were a lot of the motion of the radar that we saw through portions of Minnesota and Wisconsin. There was a lot of this looks like it's not really going to impact our area. It looks like it's moving more northerly than easterly, but what has happened over the last couple of hours is that we've seen a lot of those areas down to the south fill in. So even if it does have a slight northeasterly component to it, you're seeing more activity fill in to the south that is going to put this whole line together. And that line structure has been primarily what we've been expecting over the last couple of days, now that we've started to see this severe weather threat come into view just a little bit more. Currently, the only warning that I see, Stone, at least over land, appears to be a warning that's including Chicago, and it's extending into parts of western Indiana. That is a severe thunderstorm warning that looks like it has a purple outline on it, and usually for us, that means that there is likely a higher threshold of wind or a higher threshold of hail. So if you want to query that for me, and if you want to let me know what kind of severe thunderstorm warning that is, and see if it's got maybe a destructive tag or a catastrophic tag, I think that's going to give us some info there. Go ahead and see at the bottom of that bulletin what that might be. I'll share our live stream out to another page.
Yeah, tornado watch, obviously. Remain alert for possible tornado. Tornadoes can develop. Impacts are hail. Doesn't actually say. It just says thunderstorm damage threat considerable. Hail
Okay,
up
so-
to an inch.
So
Winds
it's
up to
a
70.
considerable.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a considerable warning that's going to be for 70-mile-per-hour winds, and it actually looks like, Stone, if you want to zoom in towards the Grand Rapids area, we actually have our first warnings that have now started to move into West Michigan as well, and that appears to be a warning that goes up and down a pretty good chunk of the lakeshore there. I'm going to guess if it's got that purple outline, that's likely a considerable warning too.
Yep.
Yep, that's a considerable warning for that area right there that goes from Ludington down to Muskegon and just to the west of Grand Rapids. It doesn't look like it includes Grand Rapids itself, at least not yet. But it looks like it's moving in that direction, and we'll see if there's any other warnings that get added along that line. And also, in addition to the 70-mile-per-hour considerable thunderstorm tag, it looks like they've included a tornado possible tag on that. And so what I think you're going to see as we go through the night, and one of the reasons that Stone is here with me tonight as well, is even though these line structures tend to be more of a straight line wind threat, there can be these embedded circulations within the line that can lead to what we call QLCS tornadoes. And what they are is they're just usually very quick spin ups that happen. They're usually not the stronger supercellular type tornadoes that we see. But what it's going to be a challenge for us tonight is to make sure we catch some of these little circulations that might be embedded in the main line to capture any tornadoes that we might not see in the typical hook echo structure and those types of things. So What have you've been here with me, what have you kind of noticed over the last couple of hours as these storms have moved in, kind of what you're watching for as well as we go through tonight?
Yeah, definitely it was probably a lot more active than maybe what we'll see out there in Wisconsin, which doesn't surprise us. That environment was a lot happier for severe weather today, but obviously we still had that chance as it moves through. But yeah, like you said, we just get these embedded rotations, and what we've been seeing with a lot of these spin-ups in Wisconsin and Minnesota is it's sort of along this line. You don't really get a good picture on the radar, but once you get to look at that velocity, that's where you start to see that rotation with this line. Now, again, I think this stuff that's going to go through this sort of Grand Rapids area, that'll be north of the bay by the time it gets here.
Yeah.
I'd say it's that area down to the south that I'm surprised we don't have a warning yet, but we'll get there, I think.
Yeah, it does look like there might be just a little bit more distance between the lakeshore. So I'm wondering if they got that warning out for that part of the line that was getting ready to move onshore here very soon. It wouldn't surprise me if we start to see some extension a little bit farther to the south. If you look at that cell that's just southwest of that warning, if you can see some of that purple shaded area that's out over that cell that's right just to the southwest of that southwest corner right there, you can clearly see what is normally a hail signature with that purple shading. There's likely some pretty good hail coming across that where that storm is. And then also, if we could actually go to the tornado watch stone, I'm seeing some of the questions come in on the live stream that have gone along with this, and then also some of the posts that we have put out on Facebook. We want to emphasize that we have this tornado watch that is in place right now just for Gratiot, Isabella, Clare, and Roscommon County. But you'll also notice that that alert goes until 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're in Gratiot, Isabella, Clare, or Roscommon County, you are going to be done well before 3 o'clock in the morning. I think what the Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center have done with this tornado watch is they've allowed themselves plenty of time to expand this eastward if necessary. And so what you have noticed over the last couple of years with tornado watches, what you've noticed with severe thunderstorm watches, is that they're for a much shorter duration of time. They're not issued at noon for a threat that's coming in at 8 o'clock. They try to get those watches out just a little bit sooner, so you're not waiting all day for those watches to come to fruition. And so I think what you'll see if conditions remain favorable by the time this line moves a little bit farther inland is I think you'll see some expansion off to the east if conditions are still right. I think that's the big question, and that's the question that really we've been talking about for the last couple of days is we expect thunderstorms tonight.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt we're going to get some rain, we're going to get some thunderstorms tonight. The question for us locally in the TV5 viewing area has been, are they going to hold their strength as they come through? And so far into the West Michigan portion of that, where we've had that enhanced risk, they have done that so far.
And I think the environment there was a little more, again, was better for severe weather. That southeast corner, or southwest, I mean, towards Kalamazoo, had really been showing, I'd say Grand Rapids South actually, has been showing quite a better environment for severe weather with this event, unlike the areas to the east that maybe had that cap that still wants to sit there. We'll see how that influences this line. Again, I think like you said, we're still going to see thunderstorms. We're still going to probably see some stronger winds with this. It's going to be how strong can they get if that cap's still there? And as we start to lose some energy as we lose that sun.
Yeah, so we have enough ingredients for these storms to come through. It's if they're aloft and they're away from the ground level ingredients that are there, which are a little bit better for maybe a more tornado threat for us, if we can access some of those ingredients near ground level, that would be when we have a little bit more concern for that. And also we're playing beat the clock when it comes to the amount of storm fuel that's going to gradually diminish as we lose the heat of the day. So it's been one of those setups where we've seen this a couple of times so far this year is we're almost playing beat the clock with this threat. I think there's more juice, if you will, to this event than what we have seen in a few events thus far, because there was another event where you weren't in the office with me, but you were watching the radar at home for some of the overnight coverage, and you and I had talked about, hey, this looks like storms are going to move into our environment overnight. They're going to weaken, and that's exactly what they did. Now, the question I have tonight, and I wrote about this in our First Alert blog that is available every single day, is also we have to define what weaken is tonight. Now,
Yeah.
on the west side of the state, we're seeing these warnings that have those considerable tags, which are severe thunderstorms with a little bit more punch than what we usually see. So they might come with something like 70-mile-per-hour winds rather than the 60-mile-per-hour winds, or they might come with 2-inch in diameter hail as opposed to quarter-sized hail. And so could we see a weakening trend technically by having our storms a little bit closer to that typical 60-mile-per-hour threshold as opposed to the 70-mile-per-hour threshold on the west side of the state? So I think that is what is going to be so interesting as we work through the next couple of hours.
Yeah, definitely. Just as it gets, we've had this, like you said, a few times this year where the western side of the state's definitely had that bigger risk, a little bit more energy. That's just because it gets there a little bit earlier in the day. But still, there's going to be energy there. The system has that low pressure system that's been sort of spinning over North and South Dakota, Minnesota, has been pulling a lot of moisture in from the south, setting us up where we actually probably have more energy than any other system this year. And with that, as these storms move west, there's still a chance. We're going to have some chance of severe weather. It's just, can they hold together? How wide I think it is, especially because I think some of it just starts to break apart as well as it enters that not so great environment over our region.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, could be a factor tonight is it might not be an equal impact over the area. The places that are included in the tornado watch right now, they of course stand a slightly better chance to actually see some of this weather because they're going to get a sooner arrival than, say, perhaps Tuscola County or Huron County or Sanilac County, which may not see some of this line until after midnight. And so that doesn't mean those counties won't see severe weather. There's a very good possibility that they hold together or at the very least stay close to severe thresholds. But I think the odds are greater in that Isabella, Gratiot, and even western Shiawassee County area. Those are the regions that are included in that enhanced risk. And we can just pull that up. I think I see it in your graphics library right next to the bus stop forecast. I think it's right there, if that's day one.
We'll see.
That is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
And so if we look towards Isabella and Gratiot County, we've got that area of orange in the southwest corner. And we also have that extending down to the south towards Shiawassee County, just to the west and southwest of Owasso. So that likely includes areas like Perry. In Gratiot County, I would guess that includes Ithaca and areas south of there. It looks like it's right around that bend that goes up US 127. Then it extends up through areas like Big Rapids and off to the north and west towards Manistee. So I think what the Storm Prediction Center did a really nice job with this particular outlook is they showed kind of where that border is between what could be holding its strength by the time it gets here and then sort of the gradual drop off that happens after that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They extended it because it was to Lansing this morning, and I think that midday run is when they eventually pushed a little bit farther to the east towards sort of western Shiawassee County there. I think that is because they're just going to play it if it can hold together a little bit longer. And I think models have been suggesting that sort of that area towards Lansing into southwest Shiawassee, there could be a few parts of this line that just hold together a little bit better. And I think that, again, that goes back to, I think the environment is just a little bit better down there to the southwest corner of the state, really Lansing down to Kalamazoo, south of Grand Rapids. But again, we still have that chance here.
Yeah. So I think what's going to be interesting is how far east that tornado watch is extended as we go through tonight. And that could be an answer that we're not going to have for at least maybe another hour or two. I wouldn't be shocked if we can see that watch maybe extended into areas like Midland or Saginaw County. I think Shiawassee County could be in play for that too. But also know that just because you're in the tornado watch area too, you could get through tonight with just a severe thunderstorm warning. I think the conditions are a little bit more favorable for rotating storms this time around. We have a tool that we use that's called updraft helicity, and it sounds like it's got a fancy name, but what it is the updraft is the part of the storm that we watch for rotation. And so helicity just is a tool that we use that measures kind of the spin of the atmosphere. And so I think we have seen data suggest that a lot of these storms tonight could rotate as they come through, but also we want you to know that rotation doesn't necessarily mean a tornado is going to happen. We have supercells that rotate, that can produce maybe some golf ball sized hail, but not necessarily enough rotation for a tornado all the time. Or they can have gusty winds, they could have microburst type situations. So that's going to be something that we'll have to watch pretty closely tonight. And also, we'll have to be careful that, not only do we catch rotation, but also make sure that we catch rotation that we think has a really good chance of actually being near the ground, which of course would suggest, tornado formation. So that's, again, something we're not going to know for a bit more time here as these storms have to make their way to us. And already it's 9:30 or coming up on 9:30. So naturally we're getting further and further away from sunset. And so that energy is going to start to fade. We can give you a look at the hour by hour forecast here, and it shows an arrival closer to US 127, and we think this could be at least a little bit sooner. Based on where it is right now, maybe around that 10:30 time frame is kind of the sweet spot. Give yourself a little bit of time on either side of 10:30 just for natural variability here. But I think US 127 probably within the next hour, maybe a little bit longer than that.
I think that's been the biggest sort of disagreement with the models is sort of the timing. They've switched a little bit back and forth. Earlier this morning, a lot of models were suggesting maybe a little bit later. We've watched this line maybe move a little bit quicker. So we'll see how things adapt as we get through the next few hours, because it will obviously make a difference of the timing.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think closer to US 127, somewhere in that 10:30, 11 o'clock time frame. I think as we start moving eastward into the Saginaw Bay region, places like Midland, Bay City, Gladwin County, Aranac County, and then also extending south along 75 towards Genesee County. I think those areas right around 11, 12 o'clock, somewhere in there. And then I think if you're in the thumb, you're primarily going to be after midnight. I think depending on the speed of the line, the western edge of Tuscola County, perhaps the western edge of Lapeer County, could those counties see something as we get closer to about midnight itself? I think that's possible. And then if you're in a place like Bad Axe, Sandusky, Port Hope, you're likely waiting until after midnight. And one thing that I think is interesting, Stone, because we were talking about the Storm Prediction Center's outlook earlier, is yesterday we talked about how the slight risk and the enhanced risk showed maybe the potential relative weakening trends that could happen as these storms go across the state. But yesterday, we had the marginal risk for the last part of the thumb. It was those eastern and central sections of Huron and also Sanilac County. And so those areas have now been cut out of the marginal, and they've been added to the slight today, which means we could have more confidence from the Storm Prediction Center that maybe there is more staying power to these storms as they move eastward into the thumb, and maybe we time it just right to where they hold their strength through that point and then maybe weaken in Ontario.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it is a timing thing, just, if it does come in a little bit earlier, maybe what we thought yesterday, because we were thinking yesterday that thought was going to be a little bit later in the night, but even just an hour earlier could make a difference of seeing more energy in that area of the thumb. So I think that's probably one of the reasons they did. And obviously it is holding together pretty well. I think that was a big question, is how would this line hold up as it moved over to the lake, because that water out there is sort of at a weirder temperature. It's not cold, but it's not warm. So I think that's another question. I don't know if you noticed, they did issue another severe thunderstorm warning as well to the far north.
Okay, so that is now north of Ludington into the west side of the state. That looks like a standard severe thunderstorm warning. That does not have the purple outline to it. That just has the standard orange box, so that is likely for winds of 60, and I'm guessing hail.
Yeah, they said penny-sized hail.
Okay, so a little bit less than the typical inch quarter size, so I'm going to guess that's probably close to half-inch hail.
Yeah, 3/4 inch is what they have it. So
okay, so yeah, I think the northward extent of that line is, I think, the line I'm most interested in for some of our northern counties. And it looks like they've now expanded that warning to the south, just like we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and that is considerable. They're looking at 70-mile-per-hour winds down towards Kalamazoo, 1 inch and 3/4 of hail, and that does have the tornado possible tag with that warning south of Grand Rapids.
Okay, so let's just see. Trying to think. We're just looking through some of the comments here. And it looks like someone said we have our first tornado warning.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
And that is for, let's see, which county is that? It's just to the northwest of Grand Rapids. Is that
Ottawa, Mason,
Okay.
Muskegon.
Yep, it looks like it's primarily in Ottawa and Muskegon. I'm guessing it's on the just very. Nope, that's the severe thunderstorm warning. So we'll have to click on that again. The tornado warning for northern Ottawa and southwestern Newaygo.
In Muskegon County.
And so they have started to see some rotation that sounds like it's at least good enough for them to have confidence in that warning. So we could probably take a look at that. We'll turn our storm relative velocity on for Grand Rapids. We can zoom in to where that warning area is. And I think this paints a really good picture of what we're going to have to watch with some of those lines as we come in tonight. You're not really seeing the traditional hook, but you're seeing a lot of those bright green areas intermixed with some of that red. And it's not the easiest thing to spot as it moves in. I'm wondering if it's just that tiny little notch.
Yes.
That's right there. It's important to know that they are saying that this is a storm that's capable of producing a tornado, so there's not any spotter report with that just yet. But I think that's going to be interesting as it moves over land and starts to move into that Ottawa County area and southern. It looks like that does include southern Muskegon County as well. And that's even without the area of rotation still. That's a lot of bright green and a lot of bright red. And what that indicates is that we have a lot of wind being detected by the radar. The brighter the green, the brighter the red, even in the absence of rotation, is likely going to carry a lot of wind. I'm guessing some of those bright totals are probably why we have that considerable tag for most of those severe thunderstorm warnings. Probably at least some 70, 75 mile per hour winds being detected in that part of the storm.
And another thing is they're saying max hail up to an inch. So not only do you have the tornado chance, you have those strong winds, you also could have some larger hail with that. So
yeah, so it shows you the environment that is there tonight. One thing that I think is going to be really important for us here in the TV5 viewing area is I think we're going to have a way, if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, I think you're going to have a way to receive those warnings as we go into the night, especially if you're farther to the east where we might not see some of these storms until after midnight. I did see somebody just ask about Millington. Millington, far enough to the east where we still have enough time for a lot of these storms to weaken before they get there. Again, Stone and I were talking earlier, the big question is not necessarily going to be, do they weaken entirely?
Yes.
It's how much are they going to weaken? The environment suggests that there's going to be a downturn.
yes, and there is a cap that's in place. So that will also help sort of limit at least any of the surface-based stuff that you can see. So I think that tornado chance will definitely start to lower as well, just with that, if that cap is still in place, because it's sometimes hard to tell. We got some sun at the end of the day, right before sunset. Could that burn some of that cap away?
Yeah. And this cap didn't look quite as strong as some of the cap that we've had before, which really put a damper on some of the thunderstorms that we had with that last event where things really kind of died off. So I hate to say this, but it's really in a wait and see kind of mode with this thunderstorm complex. That's just the way it is tonight. We can tell you that there's a general expectation that things will kind of fall off a little bit as it moves to the east. But if you're just joining us within the last couple of minutes, Stone and I were talking about, okay, what does weaken mean on a night like this? We're getting those considerable thunderstorm tags on the west side of the state that say, okay, we're getting 70 mile per hour winds. We are getting potentially, I think once these storms come a little bit farther inland, we're potentially getting some hail that could be larger than is typical for the state of Michigan. Potentially, I think I saw on the National Weather Service's webinar earlier today, maybe as big as baseball sized.
I also saw the baseball size.
So Could weakening in this case tonight just mean we're closer to the 60-mile-per-hour
Yes.
winds in the quarter-sized hail as opposed to golf ball or baseball-sized hail and the 70 to 80-mile-per-hour wind? So
Yeah.
we don't. It's hard for us to say weaken because it's technically a correct term in that sense, but we also don't want you to think that these storms are going to fizzle out entirely.
Yeah, definitely not going to see that. This line on almost every model has held together as it moves through the state. Now, again, it does weaken, but like we keep saying, it's going to weaken where instead of the 70, 80 mile per hour winds, you're going to see maybe the 50, 60 mile per hour winds. You get the maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch hail instead of that 2-inch hail, and maybe that tornado chance does lower. It's still going to be there, I think, for a considerable amount of the state, at least through 127 at least.
Yeah, let's go back to the watch graphic because we're going to have some people that are constantly joining us because we are getting questions a lot about Bay City. What about Sanford? And this is the watch as it currently stands right now. Roscommon, Clare, Isabella, and Gratiot counties. Midland County and Bay County are not included at this time. Shiawassee County and Saginaw County, as well as Gladwin and Ogemaw, are one county away. I think it's reasonable to think that it's possible we could see these extended at least one more row to the east.
Yeah.
Assuming these storms hold together. I think I have a little bit less certainty on that in places like Tuscola and Huron and potentially up into Aranac and Iosco. I think Midlands, Saginaw, and Shiawassee, maybe Gladwin. I think there's at least a question north of Midland County how much of a tornado threat there is. Even the Weather Service in Gaylord was saying we think the chances are a little bit better in the southern part of the state. But I think if you're one county row east of the watch, I wouldn't necessarily guarantee it because of that environment that's in place tonight where we could drop below severe limits or at least drop below a tornado threat. But I think it's also at least probably a 50-50 shot
I was just saying,
that
and
you
I
can get that extended.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we do hear something from the Storm Prediction Center here at least in the next, I'd say, 30 minutes to an hour. We're going to get to that point where that thing starts moving and land that I think they'll want to get that issued if they are going to issue it.
Yeah, so I think we'll be watching that. And again, it says it's until 3 o'clock in the morning. We think that they gave themselves some time to extend it if needed. If you're in Isabella, if you're in Clare County, if you're in Gratiot or Roscommon, you are going to be done likely before midnight with the rain. These storms are not going to hang around in any location for an extended period of time. We are expecting these storms to maybe be in one place 45 minutes to an hour. And it's also the heavy rain threat could be limited during that time, where you might get a good downpour for a little bit at the beginning, and then it kind of tapers off as those storms move east, and then eventually the rain ends entirely. So I would not expect this to be a long, drawn-out thing. No. I would expect things to move through pretty quickly. Maybe take a sample of one of those warnings if you could, and let's just see maybe what the motion is on some of these storms. Let's take the info tool right here, and we'll sample that warning that's just to the southwest towards Kalamazoo. Looks like those storms are moving, let's see, moving east at 65 miles per hour. So that's what we're talking about there. We've got a pretty fast motion on this. Even that tornado warned storm, let's get a sense of how fast that one is moving. That one is moving also at 55 miles per hour. This warning, just to the north of there, moving at 55. So I think what we can do, Stone, is let's just assume for a quick estimate is we'll do a squall line measurement here. And we'll go 60 miles per hour just to give ourselves a little bit of lead time. And I think that's a decent average as these storms move. So let's get a sense of where they're going. Looks like they've got mostly an east-northeasterly kind of motion. And what we'll do is we'll drag the squall line formation, and then we'll draw it out in this direction here. And what that will do is give us at least a bit of a baseline here. This is not going to be perfect. Please do not take this as a perfect estimate here because we're sampling such a large segment of that line. But it looks like it's starting to approach areas like Wademan and Alma as we get closer to about 10:45, 11 o'clock. I always try to estimate a little bit ahead of time. So that fits closer to that 10:30, 11 o'clock time frame. There's always a chance that these storms could speed up and slow down.
And I also do wonder, too, if you're in those southern counties, southern Shiawassee, southern Genesee, if you'll be even maybe just a little bit later just because that southern side is just maybe lagging a little bit farther behind. So
yeah, so this is not a perfect estimate, but it gives you a time frame to maybe start planning. I would say Wademan, it says 10:58, maybe start making some preparations a little bit closer to 10:45, just seeing if there's any last minute things that might be loose on the front porch or something like that. Maybe if you have room in the garage to put the car in, if these start producing hail. I will say, Stone, I'm a little bit surprised considering hail was one of the bigger threats tonight. I'm surprised that we're not seeing better hail reports just yet. That always can change. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the case for the entire event, but I'm a little bit surprised to see more or less 3/4 of an inch sized hail rather than even an inch to an inch and a half.
yeah, we'll see. They did upgrade that tornado warning, the quarter size to bigger, so I wonder if they're starting to see a little bit more of that chance of some bigger hail, especially where you do get a little bit more rotation. We'll see if they changed it again here. Let's see. Did they update it anymore? No, still quarter-sized hail. So.
Okay. So, and if you're just joining us, that tornado warning is not for the TV5 viewing area. Obviously, we're focusing a little bit more on this stream to areas that are to our west and just watching how things play out. We're going to have our 10 o'clock newscast coming up here in about 15 minutes or so. So we're going to have to do that. Stone might stay on with you, or he might help me with some of the background work. But as always, once these storms start moving into our area, it could be something where I go on the air for the 11 o'clock news. Maybe Stone is going to stream if it's necessary for us. So just know that we're staffed through the night here. Matthew Mondro's coming in a little bit earlier as well. So he's going to be here overnight if anything happens then. And if there's a tornado warning that breaks out around that time and I'm still here, I will gladly assist Matthew. So we've got you covered throughout the night. There's not going to be anybody who's not here. But I think what we have been seeing on the radar so far is these storms, as expected, at least on the west side of the state, they do mean business.
Yep.
They've led to some considerable severe thunderstorm warnings, which are a step up from the usual warnings. Jesse asks Genesee County and tornadoes. So it's really tough to say. Tornado threat for us on the mid-Michigan side of things is lower than what it is on the west side of the state. So although we think a tornado is possible in the right scenario for us, the ingredients are going to have to come together a little bit better for us compared to the west side of the state. The environment over our area, US 127 and to the east, is not as conducive tonight to tornadoes as it is on the west side of the state.
Yeah, the storms are definitely going to end up hitting that cap, so it might help them be a little bit higher, not as close to the surface. Because I think if you're looking for an area that definitely had that chance of a tornado was, again, Grand Rapids south towards Kalamazoo. That environment was pretty wide open. We'll see, again, those storms haven't quite reached here yet. They'll be there in the next probably 30 to 40 minutes. So, but obviously it could still happen. We're not out of the woods.
And let's see if we can go back to the radar. That warning that's a little bit farther to the south near Kalamazoo, I'm really interested to see how things progress in that area because that was where the Storm Prediction Center highlighted a more significant tornado risk. They had what we call a hatched area, and what that hatched area is it just paints an area that we have the typical 2% and 5% a handful of times throughout the summer, which is the tornado risk that's usually labeled in something like not red and green, green and brown, which is usually the 2% and 5% risk zone. But that area where Kalamazoo is, they had a risk area painted, I believe, at 15%.
Yes.
Was that what that was earlier today? And they had the hatched area or the dashed line area and it's the dashed line area that indicates a better than normal chance for an EF2 tornado or greater. And so I think it's going to be a lot more interesting for them.
Just barely got to us.
Yeah, so you can kind of see it in the bottom corner where we've got the wind and hail threats. You see those dark dashes kind of sneaking in there. I might be under the severe folder, Stone, so I can let me see if I can pull us up, and I can just talk a little bit here if you want to.
Yeah.
If you want to take a look at where that is. So I'm interested to see those southwestern areas in that part of the state, and to see if we get more rotation development there than what we've been seeing so far. But it's also worth noting that those areas, it looks like it might be, is it that
This
second,
one, maybe?
that bottom left?
Oh, this one. Yes,
That one.
there it is.
Unless that's day 2. That's
No, it's day
tomorrow.
2. Well, I can just, I'll pull it in real quick and I'll just change
Yeah,
it real quick.
we'll see if we can pull that in. But either way, I'm interested to see how the tornado threat evolves in those areas a little bit later tonight, because we haven't seen that thus far, but those are the areas that have the better chance for rotation. They're also the areas where storms have not come on shore yet. So I think that's going to be something that we'll have to watch. So Stone's going to pull that up for us.
We don't have the hatch.
And
but
it doesn't have, I wonder if they made that change.
Maybe.
Maybe they made that change. Either way, it's not important for us. We can
Yeah.
we can just go back to the radar for us. And let's see if we've got just the latest picture on that. So there we go. Quick play. But it's those storms that are down near Kalamazoo that I have a pretty good interest in. And if those are moving more east-northeasterly, those will be ones that I think we'll have to watch as they move maybe towards that Lansing area, as they lift kind of off to that east-northeasterly direction. But again, as Stone has been saying a couple of times, environment not as favorable for that. So no guarantee that that happens. I still think far and away for us, the bigger threat is going to be the damaging wind threat. I think the greater threat for us is going to be the hail threat and some heavy rain and lightning along with that. But that tornado threat's not going away just yet. So let's see. Someone says I need to fix my mic. Hopefully, so we have full volume or something.
Let me see. Click.
Is it this?
No, not that one.
Not that one.
Not that one. There
Right
we
here.
go.
Test, test, test. 1, 2, 3. Looks like we're okay. If anyone else notices some mic issues, please let us know. That's the first one I've seen. Logan is asking any ideas when it'll track into Genesee and Saginaw County. I think it's closer to midnight, right around maybe 11:30 to 12 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame. I think that's when you're going to see it come into Saginaw and Genesee County. I think Flint might be just a little bit later than Saginaw County.
Yeah, and I think what we said earlier, give it a little bit of time either way, just because models were suggesting it was going to be a little bit later, and now that we've gotten through the day, I think they're moving a little bit quicker this line than maybe previously anticipated, so that obviously will throw some things a little bit everywhere with the timing, but obviously be prepared, I think, from that 11 to probably midnight time frame.
Okay, yep. So I think 11 to midnight is fair for Saginaw and Genesee County, but give a little bit of grace on those time frames. I think that's a good average based on what we're seeing. I would say closer to midnight rather than 11, based on the current time frame. But we're going to watch how things progress. So a couple of you have said that you can hear me just fine. Some are saying I'm lower than Stone, so maybe I'll put my microphone up just a little bit. We're still learning our new setup on the desk here, so hopefully it's at least doable this time around, and we'll get any of the small problems fixed. So Alex asks, are conditions more favorable for a tornado in Gratiot, Isabella County? I think just based on the fact that we have the watch there,
Yeah.
yes, likely greater than the thumb. I think that's fair to say. Up to this point, there's a sooner arrival there. There's a sooner chance that these storms can maybe take advantage of some of the better ingredients.
So they just put a new warning on the sort of eastern side of Grand Rapids,
Okay.
and to the north That's 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts now. So
Are we getting into the destructive warning, or is that still considerable?
No, they have got destructive.
Okay, so that is something. Let's zoom in on that warning right now, Stone. And let's see if we can, let's flip over to the wind velocity, if we can. Yeah, you can really see if it looks any different on the actual velocity. That one right there, just to the left.
There we go.
Okay,
Oh,
that
yeah.
gives us a much better picture. So let's pause this right now. Let's go to the live view. Go to now. Very good. And then let's just double check up here. I know we've got Doppler winds right there. And take a sample of that blue area that's just north of Robinson. That is a lot of winds up near the top of that storm. So we're sampling
Just north.
in that part of the storm, just to the west of Grand Rapids, sampling some winds that are about 85 to 95 miles per hour in that storm.
So yeah.
It looks like 96 is the heaviest that we're getting. 76. So that either way, that's a lot of wind. We can clear those off and just show you that blue shaded area. Let's see if we can zoom in on that. It looks like it's between Muskegon and Robinson there, Grand Haven. Okay, Grand Haven right now, we've got a lot of wind aloft. Now, Stone was sampling that part of the storm that's just to the west of Coopersville, Ravenna, and also into Allendale. And he was sampling some parts of the storm right there where some of those blue colors are. Those were sampled at about 85 to 96 miles per hour. Now, it's important to stress that that area of the storm is not right next to the radar. It is a little bit more aloft. So it's not guaranteed that that wind is making it to ground level. So we could probably lop some of that off.
Yeah.
But clearly the Weather Service in Grand Rapids is extending that warning just to the east of Grand Rapids and saying that, hey, we think there's a possibility we could at least get 80-mile-per-hour winds.
Yeah, we'll see. Because that warning did have, oh, that's the wrong one. The warning did have 80-mile-per-hour winds in it, so they're obviously seeing that.
Yeah.
What hail was it showing in that as well? Let's see.
And I'm going to stay here for just another second, and then I'll have to go out for our 10 o'clock newscast, but I will come back.
Yeah, and I'll keep streaming. We'll keep it going. Make sure, though, you tune into WNEM TV5 at 10. We'll have updates there as well. We'll continue to keep you updated with this storm as it moves from really over Lake Michigan into our area. Still got some time, though, so you have some time to prepare if you haven't already. I know a lot of people, though, you've been hearing about this over really the last day or so. Really earlier in the week is when we had most of this system really showing itself with that low pressure system that's out towards North Dakota. This is just a cold front that is extending. And actually, I'll zoom out real quick as we wait for this update or some of the next few updates, but we're not going to show because we don't have it. But there was a low pressure system out towards Minnesota, North Dakota that sort of spawned this cold front that is now sweeping across Wisconsin that saw a lot of tornado warnings today, had some hail. I did see a few confirmed tornadoes. And now as we look towards back towards Michigan, again, we can see these warnings are starting to pop up along Lake Michigan towards Grand Rapids with reports or at least warnings of 80-mile-per-hour winds. Now, if you're just joining us, there was a tornado watch issued earlier in the day that was for Isabella, Roscommon County, Clare County, and so those counties right now, that's up until 3 a.m. Now, this line of storms will be moved out pretty far before 3 a.m. They're just playing ahead of time. This is what usually the Storm Prediction Center does, is they issue it for a pretty broad amount of time, just in case it does slow down, because these storms, they could slow down as they move in. We're not really seeing that right now, but it's always a possibility. And this is a pretty long line of storms. This is going to have impacts across all of the state as we get through the next few hours. And it's going to be areas down to the south that most likely is what we have to watch for, areas like Shiawassee and Genesee County. would be those areas that, this is the side, I'll get a pointer here, a finger. This will be the area that will most likely continue to move to the north-northeast and will reach Shiawassee, Genesee County. And this will be the area that moves towards the Tri-City area, Saginaw, Midland, Bay City. And again, that's going to be probably an hour or two. Again, there's been some, I think, disagreement with the models when it comes to the timing of this system. It was coming a little bit later in a lot of yesterday and this morning's model runs, and now it's showing up reaching areas like Saginaw, Bay City, Midland around 11:30. Now, again, give it a little bit of time before and after, because it could start to speed up. Some areas down to the south could be a little bit later, as they are a little bit slower on this edge of the storm. But Bad Axe from Page there, I'll answer that real quick for you. You're in a portion of this system where you're not going to be out of the woods, but you're definitely on the weaker side of this system. You could still see 40 to 50 mile per hour winds and some smaller hail, but you're definitely seeing most likely a smaller tornado chance. There was a larger cap, and we've talked about the cap a few times this spring and into the summer. It's just where you get warm air aloft, and it's hard for our thunderstorms to develop through that cap. So they usually develop above that cap, and that's a good thing if you're trying to avoid tornadoes. But as you get that cap, you can get more hail, and obviously still have those strong winds, those strong. Some could say that. I'm not going to go that far for an inland hurricane, but we'll see what it's looking at right now, actually. Again, the National Weather Service, that warning just to the east and north of Grand Rapids, had a warning for 80 mile per hour winds, destructive tag with it. So something we really don't see that often, but with this line, we're just seeing it. We're actually going to load up winds real quick because we get some questions here for the winds, and we'll see they're still looking strong towards that Grand Rapids area. So they have weakened a bit, so that may be a sign, not that these storms are weakening, but at least those winds aren't maybe reaching the surface as well. How strong will winds be in Flint? If I had to make a guess right now, I would say be prepared for 50 mile per hour winds. Again, this system is still going to be there. You're hearing a lot of weakening or lowering. I think the big thing for this is there's still energy in the atmosphere. Even though we're getting a little bit later, this has definitely been one of those systems, unlike previous storms where it has a little bit more energy there, even though we're past sunset. Now, we are losing energy as that sun has gone away, but it is still there. Again, we'll continue to keep this eye on this line. Sorry, we just had someone trying to ask me something. But again, so I would say if you're in Saginaw, we'll go over hour by hour right now. And I'll just, 127 corridor, I would say 10:30, maybe closer to 11 for your timing for this line to reach you as we get towards Saginaw, Bay City, Chesaning, Owasso, up towards Standish, Midland. Probably 11:30, could be a little bit later than that, could be a little bit earlier as well. And then as we get towards the Thumb, we get towards Bad Axe, Lapeer, even Lapeer, midnight to maybe 12:30, and then Bad Axe, 12:30 to 1, maybe a little bit later than that. Because again, there was some debate that this system could move a little bit slower as it goes over land. But we'll take a look at radar once again. And what we do see, no new warnings yet, other than some down to the south, and we'll see if it is there. I'm trying to what they had this for, and that is 70 mile per hour wind. So we'll see how well that's going to be the area that most likely reaches you in Shiawassee and Genesee County. So we'll see how much it weakens as it moves into an environment that's not as, I say, inducive for severe weather as it moves to the east here over the next few hours. So we'll just keep an eye on this. Oh, that's another tornado warning just south of Grand Rapids now. We'll zoom in on that. So let's see. National Weather Service in Grand Rapids obviously haven't actually issued it quite yet. We will see, but obviously they are seeing some rotation within this system. There is this tornado warning. We'll get storm. We'll see. It is hard to tell. Again, that's what happens when you get a line like this is it's embedded. It's hard to tell, and usually there's a lot of strong winds. I'm maybe thinking, if I had to put an eye on it, maybe there would be our best bet, and that's where the warning is. So Holland's an area that obviously we could see something. Again, this is just radar indicated. There hasn't been anything confirmed yet, and obviously we're looking a little bit farther out of our area right now because the storms haven't quite reached us, but they will continue to move to the east here over the next few hours. We'll zoom back out here as it goes back to that.
I think I see it maybe.
Yeah, it's tough to say.
I think it's just to the west of Ravenna.
Okay. And I don't know if you guys can hear Chris. He is in the background. He's working on the 10 p.m. So if you're not hearing him, that's, we have a show. Make sure you tune into WNEM TV5 at 10, where we have updates as well on this line as it moves.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Stone, it's probably. That seems to be the most likely area to me. And there might be another area that's just near the north of that warning too, right around Cedar Creek.
Yeah, there's a few areas, obviously, with this line.
That's why that warning is so drawn out.
Yeah. Again, if you, I apologize. I just quickly muted there. I should be back. Am I back? Hopefully I'm back. There's a little bit of delay. It's just, I hit the mute button on accident. I didn't mean to do that. We're still getting used to this whole desk setup right now. And again, if you hear me talking, Chris is here with me. He's preparing for the 10, or is doing preparation for the 10 p.m. Show. So he's in the background getting ready for that. So I'm just here streaming. But again, I'm going to zoom back out for now. Hopefully my audio came back. Did it? It should be back. Hopefully it did. Okay. Like I said, we're still getting used to this desk, getting upgrades and getting sort of new systems, and we press buttons and sometimes it doesn't do what we want it to do. But again, we have this now full line of severe thunderstorm warnings and 2 tornado warnings, one south of Grand Rapids, one north of Grand Rapids. And again, we have been issued a tornado watch. It is up until, tornado watch. It is up until 3 a.m. For Roscommon, Clare, Isabella, and those counties. And again, it's not going to go all the way to until 3 a.m. It's definitely going to move in quicker than that. They just like to give a pretty big lead time when it comes to these watches, just so they can extend it, because there will be a chance that Shiawassee, Saginaw, Midland, maybe even Bay City, or Bay County, could get this watch here in the next, I would most likely suspect, hour or so. They haven't issued it yet. I'm going to take a look real quick and see if they have a mesoscale discussion. Do they have anything, Chris?
I will take a look.
Okay.
Doesn't look like anything new at the moment.
Okay.
Actually, they issue one at 10 o'clock on the dot.
Okay.
MCS with embedded supercells, damaging winds and embedded tornadoes. So that's certainly what we're seeing with some of the destructive tags, and also some of the areas that we've had a little bit of rotation.
Okay. So yeah, they have issued another mesoscale discussion that will or may turn into another, at least extension of a tornado watch for those counties just to the east of our already present tornado watch. But again, there are still some questions of how much this system is going to be able to sort of handle that environment that we do have, because it isn't as good for severe weather to the eastern half of the state. Now, Again, that doesn't mean you're not going to see severe weather with this. It just means instead of the 70 and 80 mile per hour winds, you may see 50 mile per hour winds with this system. So we'll go back to Doppler here, and we'll see if there's any big changes. Nothing really. Again, still have those 2 tornado warnings north and south of Grand Rapids to the west. And then pretty much every inch of the coastline of Lake Michigan does have severe thunderstorm warnings. I feel the south is definitely a little bit slower still right now, but that would be the area I think you most likely see reach Shiawassee, Genesee County as this system starts to move, because it is moving north-northeast, and we're actually starting to see some development even ahead of this line. So we'll see how that ends up playing out with this line. You see these few cells just to the southwest of Kalamazoo. If I can get an arrow here for you. These are starting to develop out ahead of that cold front. And we'll try to stay live as long as we can. Obviously, we'll be in and out maybe at some points. If you don't hear audio, I may have just muted to talk to someone off screen, or maybe Chris and I are going to switch real quick, or maybe we got to fix a mic or something. So if we lose audio, I'm going to apologize now. Again, we could just be doing a switch, or maybe I'm started coughing, or like I said, things can happen. So don't worry, we'll unmute right away or as soon as we can, and we'll be back. But again, if you are just joining us, a tornado watch was issued through our counties towards 127, Roscommon, Clare, Isabella counties there. And we'll continue up until 3 a.m. Doesn't mean it's going to go until 3 a.m., but it's just there. There's a chance they do extend this to the east as we get here in the next few hours. And that will be all up to the Storm Prediction Center if they do end up issuing watch as we get through the rest of the night. So again, this storm is moving east right around 55, 60 miles per hour. So if it continues at this pace, we will see, and I'm just making a line right now. And again, this isn't perfect. This is, give it a little bit of time on either side. It could be a little bit earlier, it could be a little bit later, but reaching areas around Lansing towards about 11:30, Midland 11:50, Saginaw right around midnight. So if you're in those areas, Midland, Bay City will probably be right around midnight as well. But again, it could speed up, it could slow down, and that would change the timing. So this is just a good estimate. I think if you somewhere in Shiawassee County, probably around, I say probably 11:30 here. Just be ready for some strong winds, some really probably heavy rain. Again, if you're in an area that you see flooding on your roads, that's something we don't talk about that often. But if localized flooding is not going to be out of the picture with this. So if you're someone that, hey, you get your road floods whenever we get some heavy rain, this is going to be that type of system that you might wake up here in the morning and see some water on the road, or maybe you get out, see some tree damage, and you come across the road that's flooded. This is one of those systems. If you have localized flooding when we get rain, you will most likely see some localized flooding from the rain on this. And I know that's something we don't normally talk about, because I think most people go, oh, I know it is, but it is something you have to keep an eye on. Again, we're keeping an eye on it. There is no warnings right now for us as we stand. It's still a little bit too far west, but we're getting to that point where there will be some areas, probably I'd say out in Elma North, that you could start to see the chances of getting some warnings here in the next 30 minutes, just so the National Weather Service gets ahead of it. And actually, there has been a tornado warning now issued, sort of extended out of that original tornado warning. So this area must be really having some rotation. Let's see, wind velocity. Again, it's so tough to tell. When you get a system like this, it's not just that singular cell that you can see the rotation super well. It's somewhere in this area. It's very hard to tell where we're seeing that rotation. Maybe there, maybe the M46 icon is blocking. It could be up here as well. So this area is actually, we're going to do this real quick. It is moving. I don't know how fast it's moving. But you are moving towards Elma, probably Mount Pleasant. That timing's off. That's definitely not right. Timing's definitely off on that query. Let's see what it's saying the timing is. Oh yeah, that's not moving 20 miles per hour. Let's see if we can get an exact movement on this tornado warning just to that area. That doesn't mean you're going to see a tornado, but there is that chance. We're seeing this rotation now head towards sort of Elma, Mount Pleasant area. If it can hold together, you'll obviously get a tornado warning. We'll be live on WNEM TV5. Chief Meteorologist Chris Easlick will be there with that coverage. If we do get to that point, I think the environment was a little bit healthier for tornadoes towards 127, and I think that's why you are seeing that tornado watch. Again, if you're just joining, or maybe you're just getting home from work, or maybe you're out with the friends, again, you have a tornado watch for those counties along 127. It says up until 3 a.m. It's not going to be up till 3 a.m. that you see storms. This is a quick moving system. We'll take a look right now, hour by hour. Well, we'll go too fast there. So again, we're looking at 10:30 to 11. Give it some time. It's going to be a little bit off. Some of the models maybe now a little bit quicker with how fast it's moving. But it is there. We'll keep an eye on it real quick. Go back to radar and just see what we have. But again, tornado warning sort of surrounding Grand Rapids now. We'll see if they extend that one south of Grand Rapids. And that will end up adding another area that we'll maybe have to keep an eye on. It looks like they canceled that one out towards Muskegon, which makes sense. That storm is past Muskegon at this point. And sorry if you don't hear me talking. I'm just looking at some information on my phone real quick about some of these warnings. Yeah, and that is a scary thing. Is tornadoes forming in the dark. It's some of the most deadly weather that you can have. And that's why we always tell you, just be weather aware. If you can stay home, stay home. Stay somewhere close where if you can get to your shelter quick, because it is dark and you don't really see these. Now, lightning will help us. Let's look at the lightning tracker, because I bet you it's pretty high. Is it going to update for me? Not quite sure why it's not updating, but I bet you there's a lot of lightning. A lot of lightning with this system as it moves through. Just probably helps that they're pretty far aloft as well to get that lightning with this system. So again, you're just joining us, you're getting home from work, you're doing some things. We have a tornado watch. It's up till 3 a.m. It's for Roscommon, Clare, Isabella, and Gratiot County. This says up until 3 a.m. They have it for 3 a.m. Doesn't mean it's going to go through 3 a.m. It will be most likely out of our region, at least out of 127, I mean, by midnight. Then we talk about Saginaw, Bay City, Midland. Don't have the watches yet. We'll see if the Storm Prediction Center wants to issue, and I'm actually going to look right now to see if they want to consider putting a watch. They'll usually give us a heads up on their website, the Storm Prediction Center website. They will sort of give you an idea. Hey, we're thinking about giving you a watch. That's something you can look up if you want as well. If you're ever interested, just look up Storm Prediction Center. You can find it, and they'll give you an idea. So they haven't quite yet talked about it. We'll see if they have a mesoscale discussion, because that's another thing that you can access yourself at home. If you're ever curious, is a mesoscale discussion. It's the meteorologist at the Storm Prediction Center. They also will look at sort of another layer of everything when it comes to these storms. And they have not. They did issue one at 10, but it's not much different than what we have already. It's just short of Mount Pleasant with that last mesoscale discussion. Out of curiosity, do you guys use tornado emergency? I think with the tornado emergency, and I'm not quite sure, but with the tornado emergency, they use it if there's been one spotted and they know that it's causing damage. I know that's what they do down south. I have not seen one here in my time, but I'm not going to count it out. I don't think we get as much of that tornado chance here, where you do, obviously in Oklahoma, Texas, you do get that chance. But Bad Axe, right now you're not in the watch. I don't anticipate you'll get a watch out there in the thumb. It's an environment that's not as healthy for severe weather. You will still see some severe weather in the thumb. Bad Axe, Port Hope, Sandusky will be those areas. You will still see some severe weather. It's just going to weaken. So instead of seeing 80 mile per hour winds like we're seeing on the western side of the state, you may see 40, 50 mile per hour winds. I suspect you could probably still see some larger hail. We'll see how this system sets up, because again, we did have a cap in place, and that cap is going to keep your storms pretty far aloft, but that will help with some hail development. So we'll go back here, see if anything's changed. They haven't issued another tornado warning south of Grand Rapids, but north of Grand Rapids, they do have that tornado warning towards Sand Lake. And I haven't seen it. It's probably most likely still radar indicated. I haven't seen anything in the chat. Chance of Midland for the tornado watch. I think that's still up in the air. The environment was a little bit lacking for at least the tornadoes. Could they issue it? Again, I think we'll see it here in the next 20 to 30 minutes. I'd suspect that's when we'll see that tornado watch get extended. But for now, they don't. It would be counties like Midland County, Saginaw County, Shiawassee County, I think, would be the next counties to see that watch get put into place. And Chris is back.
Yeah, one thing, what I would say we could probably do, Stone, is based on how things are looking on the west side of the state right now, if we want to pull up the radar really quick, what I think we need to do for our sake and for everybody else's sake for now is we're going to probably, let's just kind of recap this really quick. I think what we need to do for the sake of our voice is probably take a pause until this gets a little bit closer to our area, just so we could take a break. We could circle back and kind of look at what we need to look at, get some storm reports maybe on the west side of the state. And then what we can do is, as storms get a little bit closer to us, we can always jump back on the screen. It looks like we've got a warning that's now coming towards the western edge of Isabella County. The actual storm itself has not even entered that county yet, it looks like, or at least it has not entered most of the county. So I think we've got a little bit of time. The Weather Service in Grand Rapids is doing a great job, I think, staying ahead of the game. So I think what we will do is we will take a quick break, Stone. Let's get a drink, rest the voice a little bit, and then we will be right back here in maybe a little bit closer to 11 o'clock, 10:45, 11. We'll do our 11 o'clock newscast, and then as the night goes on, we'll be here streaming, and we'll be here for you. So right now, what you've been seeing is you've been seeing these storms carry some good intensity.
Yep.
We've got some really good winds aloft in these storms. We detected some winds near Grand Haven, at least with the winds high up in the storm that were around 85 to 95 miles per hour. Whether that was reaching ground level or not, haven't really gotten that confirmed with an observation just yet, but it tells you that there is at least some wind that is accessible aloft that could come down to the surface. And so what we're going to watch here over the next half hour or so is we'll just make sure that we're staying on top of this. It looks like they've got that tornado warning just to the northeast of Grand Rapids now. And if any warnings, tornado or otherwise, are issued, I think destructive warnings could be something that we'll probably cover as well, just because of the nature of the wind. We'll be on air with some updates during our 11 o'clock newscast as well, along with some of the stream that's going along with it. So anything to add, Stone, before we take that quick break?
Yeah, I think just stay weather aware here in the next really hour or so. If you're along that 127 corridor is on its way. There's obviously, like you said, tornado warnings that could carry over, and you have that tornado watch right now.
Yep. All right. So let's end the stream right now. But again, just know that we will be back here in a little bit. Or if things take an elevated turn, if some of these tornado warnings that we see to our west end up getting extended, we will hop back on the air rather than on the stream. And you can find us on your local CBS affiliate, whatever source you use. Other than that, be prepared, have a way to receive watches and warnings if you're going to go to bed. And then if anything happens, we'll see you all soon.